morning to you from WNYW Fox 5 here in New York City. As we present to you our Newsroom Live, I'm Antwan Lewis saying hi to you from our newsroom here. And I'm going to step out of the way just to give you a little bit of what's going on there. But in case this is your first time being with us, then what we do for the next half hour is go over headlines. We talk a little bit about weather, and we also discuss some of the things that may be on your mind. So right now at this juncture early on, I'm going to ask you if you would, whatever format, whatever platform you're joining us on, if you have a question, a comment, we ask you to go to the comment section and put that in there. Alex, my producer off to my right, whom you may see pop in or out in a minute, but you'll definitely hear her voice at some point telling me, speed it up or go to the next subject or something like that. But she'll get those comments and then we're going to put them on. Just a couple of things that we ought to be talking about today and just sharing with you some of the things that we are covering today. A crash in Chinatown, it was a hit and run in Brooklyn. And this is a connection to that in which two people were killed. So we're working on that. We're going to be talking about the off-duty border agent that was shot near the GWB. We're going to get to that in a minute. MRI death. Jody's working on that. Jody Goldberg on Long Island. AOC's headquarters in the Bronx were vandalized. We're going to bring you an update on that. And Haley Fixler is talking about animal care centers of New York City suspends taking in more pets than ever. So a lot to get to there. But before we do that, Alex, can we show the weather? We got
Yeah,
hold on one second, because I know that's what you really want to know.
Yeah,
so hang on a minute. Let me do that. Okay, so now before I do this, I was teased last week by Nick in our sales department because I was trying to explain what was going on with the clouds and the green stuff. So, all right, as we look at it now, you see right now, New York, we're clear. Now, that green imagery right there, that's bad. That means that there's some storm activity someplace, but as you can see, the Midwest, St. Louis area, up there in Minneapolis, Cincinnati, they're dealing with all of that, so we're all clear. And here is the 7-day, that's what you want to see. High tomorrow in the low 80s, continuing until Thursday when wait a minute. 3 consecutive 90-degree days is a heat wave. All right, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, looking like going into the weekend, we may experience some sort of heat wave, but we'll be talking about that as well. All right, so if you're just joining us, let's go with our top headline. Off-duty Border Patrol agent shot. Now, this happened Saturday afternoon. The agent was not in uniform. He was at a park underneath the GWB, the George Washington Bridge. He was with a female friend. They were sitting there. What police are telling us is that 2 persons on mopeds approached the agent, again, who was just in plain clothes, and it appears to be a robbery that went wrong, that the suspects approached the agent, from what law enforcement is telling us, recognized that he was about to be robbed, and so there was an exchange of gunfire. The agent was shot twice, including up in the face area. That was where one of the injuries were. But he returned fire and shot one of the suspects, who was later taken into custody, 21-year-old Miguel Mora, who was apparently an undocumented person with an extensive criminal history. And it is our understanding that the suspect, was caught because he received a shot in the lower torso groin area and went to an emergency room in our city. And that's how law enforcement was able to track him down. So if you have a question about that, your thoughts or comments on that, again, we want you to put those in there. We also can let you know that this has certainly caught the attention of the Trump administration, the Attorney General, and the Department of Homeland Security, certainly making comments. There's a news conference that may still be underway at 11:35, where they were going to be giving an update on that. So again, this is a very serious situation that happened right now. The agent is recovering. We expect to get a better update about his condition a little bit later. Now, let's transition to the Bronx, where Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign office was vandalized. Now, this happened overnight, sometime between 12:45 and 1 in the morning. And what we understand is that red paint was sprayed on the metal gate, the security gate on the outside, and there was also an anti-Israeli message that was spray painted on a sign that was placed on the office there. Now, that's just one of the campaign offices that the Congresswoman has. So authorities are looking into that. That information, again, coming into the newsroom overnight into this morning. And you know that there are cameras. New York City is absolutely a city of cameras. So police may be at some point releasing whatever images that they are trying to get information about the perpetrator or perpetrators of this incident, and of course calling Crime Stoppers to do that. One of the other things I want to encourage you to perhaps leave a comment about, Alex and I were discussing this, and this one is new to me. So you tell me if you've heard of this. Apparently, there's a standoff that's called a Gen Z stare. And it's my understanding that with the Gen Zers, that in the exchange of information, I keep looking at Alex. This was her idea to bring this up, but she gave me the information. So apparently when it comes to Gen Z, when they are allegedly engaged in conversation, that some say that they don't really give you much back by way of speaking, that you will just get a stare. And apparently the stare is becoming a thing. So we did a story on it. So specifically, we're talking about the Gen Z stare that's garnering millions of views on TikTok and other social media platforms, where it's a vacant look. Like you could be pouring your heart out to a Gen Zer, and apparently all you may get back is a stare. Now, it may not be that stare, that's just my blank stare, but some Gen Zers say the stare is in response to customers being difficult at restaurants and stores. So in some circles, it's being considered as a de-escalation tactic, when confronted, in a situation like that, where this is the response, that you are given. Full disclosure, I spent the 10th grade through my freshman year in college, high school on through to the first year of college, working at McDonald's, all of it, every position, the drive-through, the front counter, back in the back. I can hook you up with a quarter pounder and cheese. It was very tasty, matter of fact. But nonetheless, having done customer service, we didn't call them de-escalation tactics then, at that point when I was at high school. But certainly, if this is where it's starting and it's going to just make sure that everybody gets home okay, without incident, back to their loved ones, their jobs, wherever this exchange, of goods and services is taking place, which can sometimes be a thing, whether it's the fast food industry, the grocery store, even the bank, the post office, some would say, can challenge all of us, But apparently the stare, some Gen Zers are saying that it's just in response to customers who are being difficult, rather than respond with what they're actually thinking. The stare is a more polite option of just clocking out. You tell me your thoughts on that. Okay, but again, off-duty border agent, his identification has not been released. At last check, he was recovering at a hospital. Excuse me. Now, we know that a lot of news is being made nationally, as the administration enforces and is instructing ICE to carry out, raids of undocumented persons in the country. And there is nothing to suggest, from what the NYPD is telling us, that this shooting is in any way connected with those operations, that this is in any way any sort of retaliatory action. Nothing seems to suggest that from what the narrative coming out, what the information coming from law enforcement officials is that this was a robbery gone wrong. And again, the person taken into custody, 21-year-old Miguel Mora, has an extensive criminal history. Police are also looking for the second suspect involved in this because, again, there were two persons, according to the information. Happened Saturday afternoon at a park near the GWB. Two suspects approaching the officer while he was with another person, and from what police will say, tried to rob the officer. He was shot, but also managed to fire off 2 rounds, and one of those, again, hitting the 21-year-old person, now being held and charged in connection with this incident. So, Alex, any questions or comments just yet?
Yeah, we have a question.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put it up here.
Let's see. Good morning,
Antwan.
Antwan. Let's see. Perhaps you have live coverage of Adolfo Macias's Fito's trial in New York. Okay. This, I can tell you, I don't believe we have a crew at this. We do not. But here's what I can tell you about that. Ecuador on Sunday extradited him to the United States. Now, he is purportedly the Ecuadorian gang member who relied on, a leader of the gang actually, who relied on hitmen, bribes, and military weapons to do business. Again, these are allegations. His nickname, Fito, he escaped from a prison last year in Ecuador, recaptured in June, late June. Now, in April, the U.S. attorney indicted him in New York City on charges that he imported thousands of pounds of cocaine into the U.S. He was removed from the La Roca detention center under the custody of armed law enforcement officers and in the context of an extradition process. Details of the handover were not specified. And so thank you for that question. So that's what the latest information is that we have on that. He will be appearing today before Brooklyn Federal Court, where he is expected to plead not guilty. This information coming from the Associated Press. So that's that, the latest on the alleged gang leader known as Fito, again extradited from Ecuador. Anyone with a question, absolutely put that in the comments section through whatever platform that you are joining us so that we can make sure that we engage with you. Okay, good morning. Good morning to you. What's it like covering crime in New York City? That is a very good question. And I can tell you this off the top of my head, there is no systemic, every story, every situation is different. And the one thing that you have to do in a city of 8 million people with the best police force on the planet and keeping the city safe is to understand that every scenario involving crime is different, just depending upon the range of it. It is not easy. It is probably one of the more difficult, assignments to have to cover. And again, the circumstances dictate a lot of that. There are times where when we go into active police situations and we're told stay on this side of the tape, that the process of trying to look and make sure that you are not disturbing the crime scene, that you are still able to get your job, which is to gather the news, filter out, find out the truth, attribute the information to wherever it's coming from, and then to present that information. So it's a lot. It's not an easy job, like that, but it's certainly part of what we do. And it certainly can be it's the challenges of it range. You asked me personally, and one of the tougher aspects is, when you have to go and speak with a family, who is suffering through a loss, if the crime involved, a loss of life or a serious injury, and the empathy that, at least for me, you asked me, so I can only speak as Antwan, the empathy that allows you to one, remember, you're dealing with a family. These are human beings, who are suffering through a loss. So if they agree in their grief, in their shock, to even answer the door, to allow us to talk as they share what they are going through, it's an aspect of the job that we don't take lightly, and that's probably the toughest challenge, of that. And again, crime covers so many faces, whether it's a court case, we're just coming off of Weinstein 2, the Diddy trial. So whether it's that, whether it's, white collar crime, or in the case of this border agent who was off duty, so it depends on the aspects. It certainly is a challenge, and again, it all depends upon the nature of it, but it's not fun, by no stretch of the imagination. And that I thank you for that question. I have another one.
No, but
Let's
maybe
see.
it's a good time to take a break.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
All right.
So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back.
Make sure it's good.
All right, and welcome back, everybody, to Newsroom Live. Again, our interactive 30-minute or so newscast where we get to engage with you outside of our traditional news shows, be it midday, good day, good night, of course, our 5 and 6 and 10 o'clock newscast. Now, again, I've been encouraging you all along, if you have a comment, a question about something, then please put it in the comment section so that we can look into it for you like that. Recapping quickly some of our top stories. Again, there was a off-duty border patrol agent that was shot in Upper Manhattan in a park underneath the GWV on Saturday. One person is in custody, 21-year-old undocumented person, and authorities are looking for a second suspect in that case. And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign office in the Bronx was vandalized overnight. Someone took red spray paint, from what authorities are telling us, and just spray painted graffiti and other things on the front gate and along the sidewalk in front of the door, as well as there was an anti-Israel sign that was posted onto that. So authorities are looking into the persons that are responsible for that. Alex and I were talking about things that we were going to present to you this morning, and I told her how I was on the subway the other day and actually overheard something that caught my attention. And there were two people discussing movies, and the Superman had just come out, and I believe the Fantastic Four is coming out this week, I think on the 25th. So the question, the debate that I was listening to were people saying, are we as a society over, movies, superhero movies, or those with comic book attachments, So certainly Marvel changed the game, with the MCU. DC being a DC fan, is still working on its footing. But tell me what you think. But there's been a lot of discussion about that. And then when can movies just go back to just the comedies, if it's not an animated, family one aimed at kids, the younger generation, we're the ones who are in the middle and the ones that are not shepherded in at the last quarter just in time for Academy Award consideration. Where are the others? So that's one of the other things that we want to know your thoughts on, as well as the other question before a break. The Gen Z stare, if you are familiar with that, and if you're just joining us, apparently Generation Zers are using or employing a tactic of just a blank stare, when confronted with a situation that could perhaps escalate, and again, while the circumstances may vary, but apparently the blank response, they attribute it as rather than to respond with what they actually are thinking in a scenario like at a restaurant or some sort of public service capacity, or customer service, I should say, capacity, that the stare is more of a polite option of, let's say, clocking out. So you tell me what you think about that. Oh, as promised right at the top, since we're coming to you from our newsroom, a lot of people always ask, well, what's that like? So let me step out of the way, just give you a little bit of a look at what's going on in back of us. In the far, far back is our assignment desk, and that's Jonathan up at the front there. That's Information Central, what's going on. Right in front of him is Producers Row. The 5, the 6 are there. One of the other producers may sit in that empty chair. And then right on around to the left, you can't see Max's head back there, is where the 10 o'clock and our Good Night New York producer sit. And then directly behind me, Ms. Barner is working on our 3P news blog. Our midday producer is next to her. And then Chad, one of our writers, and he also produces our 3P news blog. They are there. Let's see. Got a question or a comment? No?
No, I know.
Everyone's mute. Okay, everyone's mute. So again, we gave you a couple of topics to talk about, and hang on, let me see. Let's go over my notes. And hold on, Chad. Did the feds have that news conference with the update on the Border Patrol agent?
Yeah, they did earlier.
Okay. You got a takeaway for me? Did they say they're still looking for the second one?
I believe, yes, they're looking for the second guy.
Still
no,
looking.
No, he's arrested.
They did get him.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, just finding out that the second person that police were looking for in connection with Saturday's shooting of the off-duty Border Patrol agent, that person has been taken into custody. Chad, thank you. Alex, thank you. They were looking for two, the authorities, because from what police are telling us, the two men approached the agent while he was sitting in a park with another person, and they were on mopeds, the suspects. So again, that's what happened there. Looks like the two persons that authorities were looking for, they had one in custody already, and the second one they had. Let's see. See, Lisa's getting ready now, right? Can we pull it up? All right. So that's Lisa's story today. So that's Miss Evers right there. What's happening is that Lisa's the lead at noon. So you're actually watching the live feed of her live shot as the crew is preparing for the noon hit. Now, the guy that you saw that was just off to her, that was Mike, one of the two photographers that she was with. So that's why he was adjusting the filter, if you will, because of what, that's Mike. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Mike is moving the filter around.
Right now, 42-year-old Customs and Border Patrol agent is heavily...
Look, she's going over her notes right now. So like she just said, the guy's age is 42 years old. So yeah, that's what Lisa's doing right now. And she's with two crews, and Mike's adjusting the light, because depending upon where they are, then, the light may just be a little harsh. So that will diffuse it so that you can see her face and that she's not being blown out. So Lisa's going to have an update. So we certainly ask if you are able to follow our midday show, our noon show, in about 5 minutes or so when it gets on the air with Bianca. And let's see, police are still also looking for suspects connected with the vandalism of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's office, her campaign office in the Bronx. There's one of, I believe she has one in Queens in Astoria and maybe one in Brooklyn as well. But this was the office in the Bronx that was vandalized. And let me see. Can I do the weather one more time for anybody about to go out to get lunch or so and wondering what that looks like? Okay, so as you can see right now, I don't know if you've been out, but this map is about right. It is absolutely a stunning day. We'll see any cloud activity going over. If you look over to the left of the screen, that green and yellow and stuff, that's the bad stuff. We don't want none of that coming through here. Okay, pay attention to Thursday because as we've been telling you, 3 straight days of 90-degree temps is qualified as a heat wave. Now, we see Friday is the highest of those days, 96. That's a lot, but apparently 3 straight days of temps is a heat wave. We'll check with our meteorologist. I know Audrey Pointe is up there. So I have to make sure because, Mother Nature has the final say. She can go up or down, but it looks like we may be running into a heat wave Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, with Saturday and Sunday having a chance of possible showers. So, all right. And then there's the rest of it there. Looks like we're looking clean. Yeah, that's the future cast. I think that's what that's called, right?
No.
No?
Because
Let's see.
it looks like this is
Real time? Okay. So this is what's going on. I'm learning this. This is, I'm not a meteorologist, but this is causing me to learn a little bit more. And I told you, Nick, who works upstairs in our building, was giving me the business because I kept referring to the green stuff as green stuff last week. But I knew the yellow stuff is the bad. The green is just little bad. But anyway, that's the 7-day forecast. So
funny comment.
got our comment. Okay, let's see. Wait, it's not my mom, is it? She's watching.
It's not your mom,
Okay.
but
Okay. She literally must have heard me mention her name. So thank you, Audrey Pointe, our meteorologist. And believe it or not, one of my best friends, we refer to her as my TV wife here because of our years together when I was weekend anchor. But Audrey explains that the green is actually precipitation, and that's what that means, which means that Audrey is watching from upstairs. We're on the 3rd floor of our building, and Audrey is on the 5th floor where the studio is. So that's what that's what that is. Audrey, thank you for explaining what that is. We have about a minute left, so if you have another question or comment, please get that in. If there's another point that's dealing with the weather that you want to bring to my attention, you absolutely do that. But you can count on us, to gather here, to meet you here at 11:30. Again, just in a different capacity so that you can get the news a little bit differently than our traditional newscast. You see, my tie is like down here. I even just put this on so Alex wouldn't yell with that. But in the remaining time that I have with you, we thank you for being with us. We encourage you to stick with us on Fox Local, as well as on our YouTube page and all of our platforms so that you can stay up to date with news and information. Follow us, of course, in our newscast. The new news is starting right about now, so I won't take away from that. But either me or one of my colleagues will see you again at 11:30 tomorrow. Stay safe and be kind.